a 3-member committee, and you'll do a 10 to 15-minute presentation, primarily focused on your perspectives, your ideas for your research. For the proposal, it's a little bit longer presentation. So I would say 20 minutes probably, sometimes maybe a little longer, but about 20 minutes typically. And it's based on chapters 1 and 3 in your IRB. So all the things that you need for your IRB, your instrumentation and all of that. For that one, you have to have your full committee. So how many are on your full committee? Who remembers that one? 5, yep. And how many can be from LTEC? 4 is correct. You only have to have 3 from LTEC, but a maximum of 4 can be from LTEC. And then you need that outside member that's outside the College of Education, outside of LTEC. But that 4th committee member can actually be someone else in the college as well. It doesn't have to be from LTEC, but a maximum of 4 from LTEC. So that one you have to have your full committee. In both cases, you need to schedule it about 3 weeks out. In other words, you send the documents out to your committee members about 3 weeks in advance, and you schedule it. You also have to send out a Google form or some way to find out when they're available. So I tell students, first check with your chair, when is your chair available? Then set up some way for the others to chime in when they're available, at how many of them are available at those same times, and find the time that works with your full committee. We typically do not do defenses in the summer, so typically fall and spring. LTEC, we did get approval to do ours online. So the student can be online, the committee members can be online. You can have them in person, you can have a mix. So discuss that with your chair and your committee members as well. So that's the comps presentation, the proposal presentation. Any questions about those? And the other thing is, you never send out anything to your full committee until your chair approves it. That has happened in the past, and it doesn't usually go well. So make sure that your committee chair has said, okay, this is ready to go out to the committee before you send it out to the full committee. So you're getting ready for your presentation. Time to schedule your defense. And part of you is thinking, yay, I'm almost there, and part of you will be panicking. It's a natural, it's a natural reaction. Folks worry about them. We tell you, don't worry about them so much. It's really, particularly at the comprehensive exam phase, it's a time for you to have really a discussion with your committee about your project, and they can help you in many ways. They can give you a little more direction, maybe guide you in terms of instruments that are available and things like that. So usually you'll be absolutely fine, and you'll get some good advice in the meantime. For the comprehensive exam, it's typically about 10 slides. So the title of your study, you introduce yourself, thank your committee members always. You talk about your problem, topic of study, why it's important. You do your purpose statement, your research questions. Typically it's one slide that sort of is a summary. Many students have used mind maps, et cetera, to show the literature they review. Then you look at the conceptual and theoretical framework that you're planning to use, and then what methods you're proposing to use. How are you proposing to gather data, from whom, where, etc. So all of that is would be part of your presentation for your comprehensive examination. For the alternative dissertation, slight differences, because the prospectus has to include a plan for conducting the research, but also the types of publications you plan to submit them to, and an explanation of any role of co-authors. So in your presentation for the alternative dissertation, you would also talk about where you plan to get these things published, how are these things connected to one another, and what is the role of any co-authors in that. So that would be in the presentation as well. So for the proposal, it's again a little longer presentation. Again, your focus is on typically the methodology for the research. So beginning pieces are the same all the way up to the, when you get to the methods at this phase, now you're going to have a lot more detail. You're going to have a lot more detail about the population that you're studying, the sample how you're drawing that sample, what instruments you're using to gather data, what is your role, what is your connection, and your role in gathering the data, how the data will be collected, and how you will analyze it. And you also then now add some other things, stuff about assumptions, limitations, and delimitations, which we'll talk about, I think, next week, and the IRB status. So a little more depth at this level for the proposal defense. And at this point, you should have chapters 1, 2, 3, all references and appendices ready to go. Now, again, that outline, that will change slightly if you're doing the alternative format, etc. So the alternative will be a little bit different. So for the alternative, chapter 1 is expanded. It includes all the components that are typically in chapter 2, as well as your plan, saying that you're going to conduct this manuscript style dissertation, and what manuscripts you are planning to do, what publications you will submit them to, authorship role, and again, the methodology is included in there. So now it's looking a little different, and the presentation will be slightly different for the proposal if you're doing the alternative format. Always remember, it's your presentation, and so you're going to know more about your topic than the other committee members, than the committee members will at this point, and it's your presentation. It's a performance event, so you got to prepare for it ahead of time, and that's why we practice in this class. But also think about it as telling a story about your research, what you want to do, why you want to do it, why is it important to the field. Tell the story. So you need to have the right frame of mind. And so instead of try to keep from being nervous about it, and think about it as, hey, I get the chance to present my ideas. How exciting is that? It's your opportunity to talk about it with the experts who are your committee members. So think of it as a free consultancy. It's a way to improve your work and make it better. There are always revisions after either defense, comprehensive exam, or the proposal. There will always be revisions, but it's your opportunity to get some feedback from the faculty and to defend your ideas and talk to them about them. Committee members are all different. We're not alike. Some of them, tend to be more friendly and want you to feel at ease. I think that's many of the faculty in LTEC. Some will challenge you in order to hear your argument. They want to hear you defend your ideas. And some are very, very detailed. And they'll give you very detailed feedback as well. We all have different styles and different ways of approaching this work. So in preparing the presentation, you're going to make typically slides, not necessarily PowerPoint, but you'll provide a professional presentation. And do remember that it needs to be professional looking. So depending upon whether it's the comps of the proposal, it'll be somewhere about 10 to 20 slides is about right. Again, professional layout, bullet points, limited text, at least 24-point font. Don't have fonts so small they can't read. Use of graphics is good. Flow matters, so think about how your story flows. Don't use acronyms, highlight what's important, and don't use distracting transitions and sounds and things like that. Also, we recommend that you, as you practice your presentation, you think about, if you're running out of time, which slides could you skip or maybe not spend as much time on, move past more quickly. So again, make sure the audience can read your points, and you're not going to have your back to the audience reading the PowerPoint slides. So we always tell students, you need to know those slides well enough. We don't want you to read from the slides. We want you to tell the story. The slides should just kind of help with the outline. You're also asked to prepare handouts for the committee. Typically, we ask that you send those out the day in advance, at least a day in advance before your presentation. I recommend to my students that you have me take a look at your slides before, and I'll give you feedback before you send the handouts out to the committee. So check with your chair about their preferences. I know for me, I like to see it ahead of time so I can give some feedback on the slides. And the best tip is practice, 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 practice. And that's why we have the practice sessions in this class. And hopefully some will be coming up before too long. Anticipate what questions they might ask. Or when you're practicing with your friends, have them come up with questions. You can think about hard questions or more or easier questions. Many times they'll ask questions such as, um, if you had to do this again, what would you do differently? That's more at the defense of the final dissertation. But at the proposal stage, they'll ask you questions. Well, what if you don't get enough a sample size that you want? What are your plans? How are you going to address that? So think about the kind of questions they might ask you. Ask other students who've been through the comprehensive exam or the proposal what kind of questions they got from their committee members. Um, Again, practice your presentation skills. We do ask students to use the timer, so don't forget to start your timer when you start your presentation. Some faculty are much more sticklers about the time limitation. Others are not such sticklers about it. So again, check with your chair, make sure you know how their style is. Some will definitely, with 10 minutes, they'll cut you off, and others will say, no, it's okay if you go a little bit over, but try not to go more than 15 minutes. So again, it's a preference, and make sure you'll always check with your chair on what their preferences are. Again, just practice talking about your research with your peers, practice answering questions from different people about your topic. Because practice does make perfect. And then, of course, we're all in a tech program, so always have a plan B, because sometimes things just don't go as planned. We have had times with online presentations where the technology wasn't working well, and we had to scramble at the last minute to figure out how to get around things. So always have a backup plan about what you could do if things don't go quite as you planned, and especially if you're doing with online members and you're doing it remotely. On the presentation day, this is another thing students ask, do I need to bring food or not? Check with your chair. Again, it's not your job to feed everybody, but many students will bring a light snack or something for the committee. That is entirely up to you. Certainly it is not required. So check with your chair again about what their preferences are in terms of whether or not you should provide any snacks. Come early to set up. Again, that alleviates problems if things aren't quite going as planned. So always arrive early in order to set up. We recommend usually schedule the room for half an hour before the defense so you can come in early to get everything set up. And if you're doing it online, plan to go, if you're using your professor's Zoom office, to make sure that they give you access that you can go in and set up early. So be early on the day. Be careful what you wear. Again, you're a professional and you should dress as a professional. Bring something to drink for yourself, a bottle of water, because sometimes you get a little dry mouth up there talking through your presentation. Bring a way to take notes, because you will take notes on their suggestions and their questions that they ask you. Don't expect to take a lot of notes, but expect that you'll have to take some. Again, this is an area where you need to check with your chair. For me, I usually take notes for my student and then send them to them afterwards. So I take notes on what the committee members are asking them to change or to revise, or if they're asking them to add something or making suggestions about literature. I usually will take the notes for them and send them to them afterwards so that they can focus on the presentation. Other chairs don't do that. So you need to chair about whether you should be taking the notes or whether they're going to help with that. And if you do need to, in any case, make sure you have pen and paper ready in case you do not need to jot down notes, even if it's to jot down what they asked you as a reminder so you don't forget to answer a component of a question, because sometimes faculty will ask a question that really is multiple questions in one, and you want to be sure to answer all the pieces of it. So be ready for that. Again, as I just said, check with your chair on the note-taking protocol and how they prefer to do it. Expect that you're going to be nervous, but deal with it constructively. You will be okay. I tell students all the time, if we didn't think you were ready to go to the defense, we wouldn't let you go. And so if you get into a real big problem in your defense, it means that probably your chair didn't do enough to make sure that it was in a good shape before you went there. We've not had that problem in our department, and but you're relying on your chair to let you know when you're ready. It's another dangerous thing. Your chair will know when you're ready, and they know, all of us know what the other faculty expect, what their expectations are. And so don't push your chair just because you're in a hurry that you want to defend. Don't do it if your chair doesn't really think you're ready. Sometimes some students have pressured chairs to let them go defend, and weren't quite ready. And that just results in longer delays because you have more changes to do